Hi, this is Robert Clinkybeard and David Anderson with the Commercial Landscapers Podcast. We're going to take 20 minutes of your life to deliver some amazing content from accomplished leaders and business owners and provide you some value that you can take back to your business, your family, and your personal life and transform your life. We hope you really enjoy this. Cheers, everyone. Okay, good afternoon. I welcome Michel Kripalani and David Anderson to the Commercial Landscapers Podcast. So thanks for joining us today, Michel.
Oh, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen you, and you're just recovering from your 3.5-month RV trip, which I'm super jealous about.
Yeah, it was great. Just a lot of family time.
Cool. So just so that, give us maybe a 30-second, 1-minute elevator pitch on who you are and some of your amazing background. I've seen you've been a part of several companies, but I'd love to hear more about your background.
Sure. Sounds good. So I'm a serial entrepreneur at my core. I started my first business about 8 days after graduating from university, and now I've started 4 companies. They all happen to be software companies. Most of them are visually inclined. My degree is in visual arts, so I love living in that space between art and technology. So I ran an early multimedia company. I ran a video game company for 11 years that had many bestsellers and was great to work at. Sort of in my 20s. And then more recently, about 11 years ago, we started an app development company where we publish the apps for Dr. Seuss and a lot of other major brands. So we've done about 600 apps in the last 11 years. And then 2 or 3 years ago, we started an augmented reality company, which is still at its infancy, but trying to get a company up and running before the world really starts to adopt augmented reality and virtual reality.
Cool. That sounds like an amazing background. So I was listening to a presentation the other day, and somebody was talking about how they feel technology has suddenly advanced in where we at. We're in October 2020. It's advanced maybe 10 years because of COVID. So tell me how all these changes and has happened over the last 7 months, how that's affected your business.
Yeah. So specifically on the businesses, I can tell you the augmented reality company has slowed down. It's been tough to get people together and get them to put on headsets and share headsets, and all of that makes sense. Most of the other businesses are actually doing really well, though. Our app company is up. We're doing educational apps for kids, and so parents are stuck at home and they want to do things for their kids. Specifically for our business, I can tell you that after 3 months of having everyone work remote, we made the decision and said, we like this and we're going to implement it lifetime. So we canceled our lease with our landlord. We told all our employees that they can work from home, and we have now moved to a work from home culture. And I was telling my wife the other day that I don't anticipate that I will sign a commercial lease anytime in the rest of my career. I think I'm done, and I want to just push forward on using technology, letting people work from home, and all of the optimizations that can come from that, and just figure out a way to get around the speed bumps. But I think on the whole, we're going to be better off, happier employees. And I actually think our bottom line is going to do better because of it. So that's probably the biggest, most immediate impact. And the last thing I'll add is in terms of tools, we've always been big proponents of Slack and Asana and all those kinds of things. We gravitated to all of those years ago. So for us, this was just natural. It just accelerated a bit for us.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, some of those apps are really helpful. Now, a lot of people who have been forced to transition to that virtual model. I've now heard some complaints about, well, how do I keep my employees engaged? I feel as though a lot of them have checked out. Sounds as though you've almost adopted that at an earlier stage. So what type of techniques have you used to keep your employees engaged?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is to try to make sure that we can still communicate. I think that's the easiest thing that you lose is the water cooler connections and the rest of it. So once a week, we do our big level 10 meeting. We run a system called Traction that some of your viewers may be familiar with. So every Monday, we run our level 10 meeting. And then every other day, we always start with a standing huddle of 10 to 15 minutes. So everyone gets on, they talk about what they're going to do. We still use a system called Commit to 3, which we started using years and years ago, just to make sure that everyone's focused and everyone knows what everyone's going to work on. And then we're on Slack all the time. So we're just chit-chatting on Slack like we were in the office. I mean, the reality is when I was in the office, I still had people a couple of doors down and I would use Slack to communicate with them. So now I still just use Slack to communicate with them. The only thing I really can't go do is walk over and tap them on the shoulder. But, they're never further than a quick Zoom call or a FaceTime call away if I really need that type of interaction.
That's awesome. David?
Talk to us a little bit more about the use of technology and, running your business. It sounds like you've been doing it for quite a while, which is great. I would say I'm beginning to hear that as we head into month 6, 7 of COVID, some companies are starting to see people working together, but a loss of creativity, a loss of some productivity. The work's still getting done, but continuing that collaboration is becoming difficult for them. What are you seeing and how are you addressing that?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be tough, and I think that there are still learnings to come. What I would say is that the difference is we have pulled the trigger and said we are never going back, so we're going to have to figure it out. So I don't have all of the answers for you today. I just know that we are committed to this path. And because we're committed to this path, we will just continue to figure out what we can do to plow ahead. We're leaning more into Asana and any tool that is going to allow us to really communicate at a granular level. And we have to think about all the things that we used to communicate in the office just have to be moved either to our daily stand-up huddle or to some other technology that's going to track those conversations.
Just so I think people are pretty familiar with Slack. For those that aren't familiar with Asana, can you tell everybody a little bit about what that is? Honestly, I'm not even that familiar with it.
So Asana, in our opinion, is the best, but there are many out there. It's a online collaborative project management system. So what it does is it allows everyone to track all of their to-dos stacked up in projects, and there's transparency and visibility on a team level. Managers can see what people are working on. You can assign, you can do the normal waterfall type stuff, and you can assign deadlines to things. And we have found it to be really effective. For me personally, I have so much going on that what I do is in my Asana, I set deadlines on things that need to get done. And then I have that auto-populate onto my calendar. So when I look at my calendar in the morning, I see my schedule of what needs to be done broken down by hours. And then I also see all my Asana tasks up at the top with deadlines. And what's interesting is it's not only stuff that I assign, but my employees can assign things to me. So I always tell them, if I'm a blocker for you in anything, chuck it in Asana, put a deadline in it, and it's automatically going to show up in the first place that I look as I plan my day each morning.
Got it. Robert, one more quick thing. We're in a COVID world right now, so let's look past that. Do you see, to address some of the other issues, evolving to a hybrid model where there are days where you all meet someplace, you use a WeWork, something like that, to still be able to have that personal interaction component with it also?
I do think that will be ideal. When COVID is past us, I'm a big proponent of proper strategy meetings and thinking things through, whether it's annual planning or quarterly planning. And those really long meetings, I think, are going to make more sense in person. Personally, I struggle with any online meeting that's over 2.5 hours. And really, to have a good, effective planning meeting, you often need a full day or multiple days. And I crave getting back together in person for those.
Well, you're doing better than me, Michel, because about my 7th Zoom call of the day, I'm good for about 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
I hear you.
Michel, you touched on kids and education and going online. I mean, you touched on, offline beforehand, how, you and the kids and the wife have been traveling in an RV for the last 3.5 months. And, I hear and see every day my wife trying to deal with kids and doing online schooling. How do you see that playing out in terms of just general education or learning, whether it be kids or, employees within the workplace, and how that's going to transition?
So I think that you started to touch on something earlier when you were talking about technology and how that moved us forward 10 years ahead. And I believe that the same thing has already happened in education. We just don't realize it. There are going to be families, mine included, that are going to look at this opportunity to say, you know what, this online virtual thing is working pretty darn well. And I believe that there are online courses. And my daughters are 5th and 6th grade, so it's not like they're college level, but I still believe that there are online opportunities right now today that are probably superior to my local public school. And just because my public school is down the street from me, that level of convenience does not mean that my daughters are going to get a better level of education. So we are already supplementing with virtual classes for the girls. They're each enrolled right now in 2 or 3 different things to supplement the public education. And I actually welcome the day, and I'm looking forward to the day when they are 100% virtual and learning just from the best teachers wherever they are in the world. And who knows, that could be as soon as next year for us. We're still in the process of trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Because we started off with the public system online because we just didn't want that inconsistency of, is it 1 day a week, 2 days, and what does that look like at school? So we quickly transitioned to more of a, established online schooling system, and it's been tremendous. But one of my concerns is, and it goes back to the workplace environment where how do you, my kids are still young and I still feel as though they need that social engagement. How do you figure that one out? How do you keep that interaction so they're still not just locked behind the screen, but they're actually out there talking to other people and getting that connection? Because I think we're all guilty of, when you look at subways, train stations, everybody's locked into their phone, not really engaging in other people. So how do you fix that?
So I split education from the socialization. I think that there's an opportunity for them to get educated online and then to have socialization with the kids in the neighborhood. And they don't necessarily have to be going to the same school in order to do that. I'm also, I'm probably a little bit more extreme on this, but I think our traditional education system is really good for raising kids that, want to be middle managers or work for big companies or whatever it happens to be. And I'm going to be pushing my daughters to be really entrepreneurial and thinking on their own, and some thoughts that may be sort of contrary to normal education. So I don't know. I want to, when I talk about socialization, I want them socialized with people that are thinking the way that I want them to be thinking. And the majority of the kids in their school today are not thinking that way. So I think I need to get them around a different group in order to get the right mindset embedded into their heads.
Right, that's fair. David?
So our listeners can't really see that you're sitting in front of a bookshelf with 200, 300, 400 books behind you. If you were to reach back and grab one of them, talk to us about which ones have had the most influence on you or been the most helpful to you.
So I love books. I'm in my happy place when I'm in books. I love biographies. So one of the first ones I'd grab is the Steve Jobs biography by Walter Isaacson. I think that's fantastic. And also the Elon Musk biography was really good. I'm a big proponent of Guy Kawasaki and The Art of the Start. I think that his book lays a really great foundation for how to start businesses. And then Jim Collins, Good to Great. I'm a big fan of Marshall Goldsmith and a lot of the other leadership coaches that are out there. And just anyone that's going to help me to lead a bigger and better life. Annually, I have a goal of trying to get through about 50 books a year. I don't always make it, but between reading physical, reading Kindle, listening while I run, I'm always consuming content to try to become a better leader.
Knowing you well, I translate that into being the importance of learning and growing. And we as business owners, entrepreneurs, sometimes get so bogged down in just taking care of the day-to-day stuff. Tell us why that learning and growth is so important in our business journeys.
I think that it's a matter of admitting how much we don't know. If I really, I mean, I've been running businesses now for over 35 years. And if I really look back and am honest with myself, I probably have just scratched the surface on what I need to know in terms of how to really effectively build a business and grow a team and do all the things that I need to do. So I'm constantly trying to attack things from a beginner's mind and just saying, look, I don't know. I need to surround myself with great people. I need to surround myself with great knowledge. It's the only way that I'm going to improve myself. As you know, that's one of the big tenets in Entrepreneurs Organization. I credit a lot of my success to that organization, and I really embrace that particular value of the organization, probably higher than any of the others, because it gives me the ability to meet incredible people, listen to incredible speakers, and just surround myself with folks that are just, they just are constantly opening up my mind to what's possible.
So, because we're good friends, I can ask you this question. Is there a correlation between the 35 years in business yourself and that gray hair and gray beard that you are?
I'm sure that there is, although I think I probably would correlate it more to being a father of 2 daughters than it would be to the businesses. But
what you're supposed to say is, Dave, you have no room to talk. Look in the mirror. So sorry, I had to throw that in. I don't think he wants any more questions from me, Robert. So I'll throw it back over to you after that one.
Okay, no problem. So, you've talked about education and learning and just surrounding yourself by good people. But, there's so many business owners I meet out there, and they're so consumed with the news, negativity. They keep asking the questions, what do you see happening in the next 3 months, 6 months, a year? So bogged down in that, it's almost I feel as though they're stagnant.
Yeah.
And that's been also recognized in their business. Their business is down.
Yeah.
What would be the probably 2 or 3 things you would say to those types of business owners on what their next step should be?
Well, the bottom line is stuff's going to happen, and stuff's going to hit the fan. It's going to happen all the time. There's so many things that are happening in the world that are out of my control. And as a business owner, what I need to do is I need to look at everything that is changing in the world around me. It gives me an opportunity to find a way to make my life better for it. I think that, when COVID hit, a lot of people were stunned because it was sort of like life as I know it or business as I know it can't continue or it can't work. And I quickly got into a mindset of, okay, well, if this is the new normal, then how do I react to it? And I think that we've touched on that a little bit, in terms of like, okay, well, let's use this as an opportunity to shut the office space and get all that fixed expenses back and get that back to the bottom line. On the family level, it was sort of like, well, let's use this as an opportunity to buy an RV and go see the US. And we ended up spending 3.5 months on the road. And, we were still quarantined. We still followed all the CDC guidelines, but we got to do something that otherwise we wouldn't be able to do. So in every change, there is always opportunity. And so it's really just a question of how we look at the world. And, whatever life throws me next, I'll be ready for it as best as I can. All I'll say is I'm ready to react. I just don't know how I will be asked to react yet.
And how is that translated into, you talked about leadership. I mean, you've probably had some employees who've struggled deep down, and how's that translated into you showing your true leadership with your team members?
I'm a pretty positive guy. And so I do everything I can do to sort of find the silver lining or the positivity in this. It's certainly, as I have employees that have kids in school and they ran into problems and all the rest of it. And it was like, hey, if your life is going to be better working from home so you can support your kids, then let's do that. I think that there's an opportunity as a leader, as a manager, to find a way to have employees have a great life. And that's just a matter of looking at what their needs are and sort of saying, how can I help them to connect the dots? I don't know, these people are, really, really, as successful entrepreneurs, we're only as successful as the people that are working for us and what they put in. And with the work that they do and the opportunity that it gives us to live the lives that we do, I mean, it makes me wake up every day with immense gratitude. And I really want to try to bend over backwards to make their lives fantastic. So something like COVID hits, it's just a matter of asking questions like, what's going to be better for you? How do we make this work? You know? And in the case of my employees, I think unanimously, they're all in a much better life situation now than they were in March from a quality of life standpoint.
So to kind of maybe head towards a wrap up here, I agree of needing to just be able to deal with the situations that's come to us. Knowing a little bit about your businesses, translate that into how you pivot your businesses during times like these and what you've done and been able to do as COVID and what's went well and what hasn't gone well.
You know, I think that something like COVID puts everything under a microscope. And, you know, look, there's areas where we were losing money and bleeding, and we had to do triage on those things as quickly as possible. And there are elements of business that just had to be cut off because they weren't going to turn around and come back anytime soon. Other businesses, other places, all of a sudden were showing a increased heartbeat, and we had to double down on what we were doing there. I don't think that COVID is significantly different than what we're trying to normally do in business, other than it just ratcheted up the importance of making big decisions really fast. It forced people to go like, okay, this isn't going to work. I got to move fast. So, I mean, I've got one business that's totally, completely down. There's barely a heartbeat. I don't know if it's going to survive. We had to cut our expenses down to a minimum, but put it in a position where it could survive in the future, which is going to be in a non-COVID world. I don't know. Sometimes you just have to make those hard decisions.
Do you feel as though you made them quick enough? Because I know some of my clients I was dealing with, they were, did we cut things? Did we cut employees? The whole PPP loan was coming down the pipeline. So people were just nervous about when to make that decision. So looking back, do you think you made some of those decisions quick enough?
I think we moved fast on a lot of the decisions. I think that we, got in front of the landlord and said, we want out of this lease probably before a wave of it started. I mean, we were out of our lease early in June. We saw the writing on the wall, and then we didn't realize that what was coming in San Diego was going to be a second shutdown. And the termination fee that we had to pay to get out of the lease cost us less than what the second shutdown would have cost if we had just waited and dilly-dallied on that decision. So I'm glad that we made that decision. I think it's almost like, there's a saying in hiring, hire slow and fire fast. It's not directly relevant, but it's almost the same here. It's sort of like, be really careful and slow on increasing fixed expenses. But if you need to cut them, man, you got to cut them fast, and you just have to look at the reality of the situation. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So final question, Michel, really important question, probably the most important question.
Okay.
Where and when's your next trip? Going around the world next?
Seriously, you want to know? So
I'm jealous.
Wow. Okay, that's fine. So we've been home 2.5 weeks, and we are loading up the RV and leaving again in the next 48 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, the girls are going to be on break again, and we're not just going to sit around at home. So it's only 2 weeks, but we're going to take off another 2-week trip. So we are using this opportunity to live life to its fullest, and it's a different set of rules. It's a different way of what you can do. And we're just going to, my goal is to maximize what is possible within the cards that have been dealt. So I can sit and cry about COVID and try to, wish it was something different, or I can say, okay, within this set of rules, how do I maximize this for myself and my family? And we're going to go maximize it.
That's awesome, man. I think relating to my kids, I think one of probably the best things I want to hear from my kids in 10, 20 years, I want to hear about the experiences they've had during these times, that's real life experiences rather than, the mundane stuff they do at school. I mean, school's obviously still important, but I'd rather hear about this type of trip or where they went and what they experienced. I think that's generates some lifetime memories, and I think that's awesome. So well done for doing that.
Yeah, that's it. I agree 100%, right? Live every day. If you want an extraordinary life, which our family does, we choose to go after an extraordinary life, then every choice, every decision that we have is somehow feeding into that. So we choose to go after extraordinary when faced with a choice between an A and a B.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Michel, really appreciate your time today. I think your learnings have been tremendous, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you, Michel.
Sounds great. Hey, thank you for having me.
Hopefully that was pure dead brilliant for you today, and you got some great takeaways for your business or your personal life. This is Robert Clinkybeard along with David Anderson, and we'd love to get you and your friends to join us in our future journey. So please subscribe through our website, commerciallandscapers.com, or through the various podcast channels out there. But anyway, hopefully you have an awesome day. Cheers.